Hello, welcome everyone to our Bravo 22 live programme on our YouTube channel. This has been made possible by the Royal British Legion and the Drive Project. I'm Clem Boland. I've been a participant in Bravo 22 for several years now. I've enjoyed many of their art sessions, and I'd encourage any viewers to tell any military friends and family about the Bravo 22 programme and to subscribe to the channel on YouTube. You can ask questions during the session using the chat function on YouTube. There's lots more to come over the next few weeks as well, and we'll be giving out information about next week's sessions at the end of this one. Today we have Al Johnson as our host, and Glen Baxter is our guest. He's an artist and draftsman with a passion for surrealism. So I'm going to hand you over to Al Johnson to introduce him. Thank you. We've already got shout outs to Luke, Paul, Dean and Sarah, who are all already tuned in. So hello to you.
Good morning. Thank you. Thanks, Clem. Very prompt. You shout out people. That's very good. It's great that you're here, and it's fantastic to have Glen Baxter along with us. Glen Baxter is an artist. He's an illustrator. He's known as Colonel Baxter for reasons which are lost in the mist of time. I don't think he's the real Colonel, but we can ask him. Glen, lovely to have you here. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm just going to tell you a bit about about Glen's work. He's got work in the Tate and the V&A Museum, so we're in very lauded company. He's published lots of books. He's including, and our title for this session is Almost Completely Baxter, which is one of the titles of his books. The other books are called New and Selected Blurtings from 2016, and my favourite is Ominous Stains from 2009. I wonder if Glen, if you want to tell us a bit about your how you got started in making these kinds of almost like adventure comic drawings, aren't they? They're a bit like Biggles or Dandere, and they've got captions which sort of change the meanings. They're sort of shifted, so they're quite humorous. Well, they're very humorous, but the captions kind of shift the balance. It's somewhere else. Tell us about them, Glen.
Okay. I went to Leeds College of Art when I was a young lad, and there were lots of people doing abstract paintings there. And I didn't really, there were that kind of pastiches of American abstract work. It didn't really resonate with my background, my interests. And I was drawn to surrealism because I had a speech impediment as a child. And on one occasion, my mum sent me down to a local shop to buy a collar stud for my dad's shirt. And on the way down there, I was rehearsing saying the part so I wouldn't stammer when I entered the shop. And I finally got to the shop, and I marched straight in up to the counter and said to the man behind the counter, "Do you have any collar studs?" Perfectly fluently. And he looked at me as if I was a complete and utter moron. And he said, "I think maybe you should try the shop next door." And I turned around and realized that I was in a furniture shop. And in my attempt to focus on the words, I'd forgotten about the real world. And years later, when I was at art school, I realized that's the world of surrealism, where one thing can become another very, very easily. And so that's why I wanted to rebel against the abstract painting.
Right.
And surrealism was my magic key out of that system.
So surrealism is I looked for the Tate Gallery definition of surrealism is as follows: a 20th century literary, philosophical, and artistic movement that explores the workings of the mind, championing the irrational, the poetic, and the revolutionary. So, do your drawings do that? Do you think?
they do. Yeah,
Also
every day, every day. Actually, there was a surrealist called Max Ernst who made some books of collage of old steel engravings from old newspapers and magazines, and he created these sort of haunting, rather disturbing, strange worlds, which were kind of either absurd or very, very dark. And I realized there was something in this technique, but I didn't want to copy that technique. And then years later, I found lots of old boys' annuals, and I realized that they were the equivalent of these steel engravings, and I could manipulate them, not using collage, but I could redraw them or draw in that style. So I had like a deadpan presentation, and then I could manipulate the words, my own words, to make some kind of otherworldly sense or some nonsense. So there is that element of shock and absurdity in that technique, which is what I did.
Yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? Because it's like it's finding something that really, and I think this sometimes happens that if you're happy at art school, you find something that is, but you can make yours, and that's obviously that's what happened, I suppose, isn't it? I came across your work, Glenn, in the 80s, the 1980s. I was working at the ICA, the Institute of Contemporary Arts, which was quite a hip and happening place at the time, I have to say. Glenn, you had a show there, didn't you? I think was it your first show?
Yeah, it was.
Okay. And you told me a very good story about your the postcards in the shop. I knew the owner of the shop, or the person who ran the shop at the IC at the time, so I remember this. This is a very good story. So tell us about the postcards.
Okay, so basically, I was trying to get my work seen, in theory, at some point published, and I couldn't get any response whatsoever. People just either fell asleep or left the room as I was talking about my work. So I had a series of, I think it was 4 postcards printed by a local printer, and I took them dutifully in a little carrier bag down to the ICA bookstore and asked them if they'd like us to stock these postcards. So they selected a few, and Uncle Frank was one of the images that they had chosen, but they only took 4 copies of it, 4 postcards, because they thought it wouldn't sell very well. This card went on to sell 15,000. I rest my case.
It's extremely funny. You've got a plate there, haven't you?
Yeah, I can show you the plate. Yeah. Story
of that drawing. So I don't know if you can see that. It's Uncle Frank who's sawn his leg off, and it's the caption is Uncle Frank would keep us amused for many hours. Brilliant. I think it's very funny that they misread the ICA audience. Absolutely.
Luckily for me, yeah.
And you said your show there, which was what, 1981?
81, yeah. The reason I got an exhibition there was I'd never shown my work in a public gallery before, and somebody had pulled out at the last minute, and it was called the Concourse Gallery. But I quickly discovered it's the corridor between the bar and the toilets, so people get to see your work many times during the course of the evening. So it's actually the perfect place to exhibit your work. And I had a fantastic lot of people coming to the exhibition. And also I had American publishers and English publishers knocking at my door saying, we want to publish you, which I couldn't believe. So spooky noise that, but it's my phone. So that's how I became to be published by the Americans, and also Thames and Hudson and Jonathan Cape here in London.
That's amazing, isn't it? From a show that was kind of unexpected, really, or a fill-in, seizing opportunities. I think you sound like you were very, very determined to get your work seen. And you kind of went for things by the sound of it. So Uncle Frank, who's in that drawing, he appears in lots of the drawings, actually, doesn't he?
He does, yeah.
who is he? Who is Uncle Frank? We need to know.
Well, that man stepped forward and explained himself. Uncle Frank is the archetypal kind of embarrassing relation.
Yeah.
We've all got those, haven't we? Right? You know,
Bumping uncle.
Yeah. It's actually based on my uncle called Uncle Henry, who came to dinner at our house in Leeds, and he stayed for 15 years. True.
Must have been a very good dinner.
It was these Yorkshire dinners go on forever, as you know.
Fantastic. Let's have a look at your image 1, which is an Uncle Frank image. I think that's on your screens now. So tell us about this this image.
It's the guy skiing, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there you see, that's how he arrived for dinner. You see.
Oh, right. Skiing
That's
in.
what happened.
He skied in.
And he's sitting down quietly, and we thought, well, this suddenly there's an incredible crashing and blundering noise, and it was his uncle arrives. So I thought I'd celebrate that, you know, the world of cuisine and relationships.
Does Uncle, the actual uncle, know that he's generated all this work?
No, he's long disappeared.
Long gone.
He's long gone. Yeah.
Doesn't know he's been his character has been permanently celebrated in your work.
Absolutely, yeah.
Lovely. I love that drawing. I mean, some of your drawings are colours and some aren't, which we'll have a look at in a minute. But first of all, Clem, have you got any questions? Have we got any questions coming in?
We have, yes. We've got a question. Does Glen have a favourite artist of his own?
Good question. I would say the American artist called Ed Ruscha.
Right.
And an Italian artist called Paolo Uccello.
Oh.
It was from the 14th century.
We looked, actually, some of you will have seen, we did a workshop on Uccello a while ago.
Okay.
Fantastic. And Ruscha is, he makes paintings of kind of quite, I'll not say boring, but kind of very everyday things, doesn't he? Petrol stations and.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
He uses text a lot, doesn't he, in his work?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, text is good.
Yeah.
And the other person I like is René Magritte, the Belgian surrealist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people. Do you know Magritte's work, Clem?
Yeah, I've seen some. Yeah.
He's
I
the
can
pipe
see.
man. Pipes and bowler hats.
Yeah.
Everything in Magritte's paintings is recognizable, but it's just the conjunction of the elements that make it unnerving and strange.
Yeah.
That's the genius of Magritte. It makes the everyday seem slightly weird, like David Lynch.
Yes. So it's sort of taking everyday objects and out of context, isn't it? Or putting it into a context which is.
It's the juxtaposition. That's what does it. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Any more questions, Clem?
Yes. Does Glen have any advice for budding artists?
Leave me alone. No, I would say you've got to be persistent. I was turned down many times, and there are many instances throughout history of people's work being rejected constantly. For instance, Where the Wild Things Are, which is a fantastic children's best-selling book, was turned down by 22 publishers before it was accepted. So you just have to keep on hanging in there. Be a nuisance, you know. That's why we're here on this planet.
Yeah, that was one of my favourite books when I was a kid.
What's it? Oh, there you are. Yeah,
my daughter.
I sometimes talk at the National Gallery about paintings, and the room full of people desperate to see the sunflowers is you kind of think, well, poor old Van Gogh didn't sell a single work in his lifetime.
Yeah,
completely disregarded. He would be very gratified, I think, to see the crowds now.
He'd probably be furious.
Maybe he would.
Yeah.
Clem, any more questions?
Yes. Mick asks, what comes first when you're creating your work, the image or the caption?
Well, it depends really. Sometimes I have a phrase that runs through my brain, and I try and match it up to an image, but it might be there for like a month or 2 years, and then finally something happens. And other times I have an image of like, say, cowboys in silhouette, and I wanted to do something with it. And so finally I made it into a picture which says, clandestine meetings of the Jane Austen Society were held every other Thursday. Okay, so it's very specific. And also it very cunningly gets the word clandestine into the picture, which is an often underused word, I think. So it's my chance to sort of strike back and bring these words to the public attention.
Yeah.
Bring these words to public attention. Shall we go on then? So let's have a look at this. Is in fact one of the cowboy images. Image 2, which is
Tom's first brush. Yeah.
Tom's first brush, which is my favourite actually of your images. I think because for me it brings together two completely alien worlds. The kind of He-Man of the cowboy, riding across the plains in America, and the kind of much more sort of particular world of modern art, and how those two things can they ever mix? I don't know. What was it about? I think it would be better if you told me what it was about rather than me telling you, actually.
Well, what it's about that moment of confusion when you stand in front of a painting or a work of art. You don't quite know what it is, and you have to somehow reconcile that fact with your brain and your cultural background, and how does that fit in? And I wanted to kind of to show the polarization moment. And I thought, well, the cowboy is a classic archetypal figure, not known for his love of Monet, or Picasso. So I'll put him in front of a blank canvas, which is one of the staples of modernism in the 20th century. And so try and capture that. The French have a great word for this called a frisson, where there's that startling moment when two things come together and you can't quite make sense of it, but it's a kind of haunting, enigmatic thing. That's what I tried to do.
Yeah, it's a great image because it's very funny, but it's also kind of quite sad, isn't it? Because it's almost about like people not understanding each other, not getting each other.
Yeah, it's like when I was a kid, we didn't have any books in our house or pictures even, and so the first pictures I ever saw were in books, and I didn't know how to read paintings. I didn't know what a painting looked like, and so it was that shock of seeing one for the first time, and then being allowed to absorb what I was looking at and process it and become influenced by it and enlightened. So it's that moment of that first confrontation.
Yeah. It's a very, very interesting, very interesting ideas actually. I think in that the image 3, which is another color image, shopping. We can have a look at it. So some of your drawings are black and white and some are color. How do you decide? How's that decision made?
It's money.
As in many things.
Yeah. When I first started drawing things, they were in full color, and people said, "Oh, it's impossible to reproduce them. It's too expensive." And so I did black and white versions of them, which then became my first books were all black and white images. And then as the world changed, color printing became readily accessible, and now everybody wants color. Every magazine wants color. No, black and white is sort of been pushed to the background, which is a shame, but that's just the way of the world. So it's good to have things in different formats anyway, so people can be can be shocked, and when they see things in black and white that were in colour, and vice versa. So they're having to rethink what they're looking at, which is great for me.
Yeah, I think the black and white ones are wonderful. Actually, I like them all, but I like the sort of sharpness of the black and white. I think it's very, it kind of demands attention in a way that perhaps we're just, there is so much colour. So tell us about this image, this shopping image, which is brilliant, isn't it?
Well, actually, it's based on the opposite fact. Is that I used to love, I still love going shopping to the market, and I was in the local market near our house, and I was queuing for some fish, fresh fish, and I noticed that I was the only bloke in the queue. So I asked the woman who was serving the fish. I said, "Where are all the blokes?" And she said, "Oh, they're all in the pub." They can't stand. The wives can go shopping. The blokes are in the pub. And I thought, well, you should be enjoying that experience, selecting your own fish. So it kind of, something chimed in my brain, and then I went home. Well, how can I depict this? So typically in the surrealist manner, I had somebody having rammed their speedboat into the banks of the Amazon River, and then falling forward and thinking, "Oh God, Saturday morning shopping is such a chore,"
It's brilliant. I love the way that your mind works, because most of us would not instantly think of the Amazon in juxtaposition with shopping for fish in the local market. Brilliant.
It does look like how I feel about shopping sometimes.
Does it? Right.
The man that slumps at the wheel. Yeah.
I have very particular likes in shopping, like second-hand bookshops and markets, but supermarkets don't do it for me. Clem, have we got any more questions?
We have, yes. How does Glen come up with his ideas? From Sarah Howarth. She says they're so off the wall. How does he come up with them?
I have a FedEx delivery of ideas every day. It's a big box comes full of ideas, and I just open it and I just carry on.
And are they written on cards for you?
They're all written on card, in a beautiful script,
Pin them up.
Yeah.
I think it's all from your mind, isn't it? They all come from your mind.
A part of it is I think goes back to the fact that as a young kid I had the stammer, and words were kind of like terrifying to me, and now I've got power over the words. It's the revenge of the stammerer, really. I remember the story about Jonathan Miller, who used to live in North London, and he used to get on the bus to go to Marble Arch. And the conductor would come upstairs and say to people, "Fares, please." And you had to tell the conductor where you were going, and he would give you the relevant ticket. And he couldn't say he couldn't say Marble Arch. So you thought, well, he found a way of getting around it by saying to the conductor, "Take me to the arch, which is marble," which is technically correct, but it just sounds a little bit odd. But it works for the stammerer, and these kind of moments are embedded in the mind of the stammerer. It's a way of speaking fluently, but not exactly logically as most people would know it. So I think the residue of that is in my poor body.
Would clandestine have been a difficult word for a stammerer? Absolutely
bloody impossible, yeah.
This is where your delight in that. Do you think you often use words that would be impossible to say if you were still a stammerer?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because as a stammerer, I used to kind of imagine the words written in the sky in flames in capital letters to try and read them, and it's a panic and fear, and it generates the kind of this weird thing where you can't, like I was in the furniture shop asking for a collar stud, and everything else is pushed to one side, because that moment of fear and panic now translates into my work, which is my revenge.
Yeah, that's very interesting, isn't it?
I mean, I've done similar not in speech but in writing. through dyslexia, finding other words to get around them kind of expands your vocabulary a bit, because I often struggle to write certain things. I would look for something else to say it. So it's
classic example.
Yeah. My son-in-law is an actor, and he's dyslexic, and he says words when he's reading scripts, words just disappear. The word that's going to be read just removes itself from the page, so there's a blank on the script where it would
shift up lines, and it doesn't scan right.
Yeah, so it just sort of takes itself away. Very interesting, isn't it, how the mind works?
I think the art schools and the drama schools in this country are full of dyslexics.
They are. Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, there's a huge number of dyslexic actors, which is incredible, really, when you think how many have got to read scripts. Learn scripts. Yeah. Surrealism would be a tricky word for a stammerer, wouldn't it?
There's so many words. Yeah.
Brilliant. Clem, have we got any more questions?
Yes. Sally Ann asks, what was it like to work with the V&A?
I taught there years ago. I used to do a Saturday morning children's class for about eight years, and at that point we used to go around all the galleries, and we used to choose topics for the kids to make puppets or make drawings of, and it was a great, wonderful experience, because you got to see backstage everything in the museum.
Yeah, I've taught there as well. It's great, isn't it? Because it's so wide. There's so many objects. So they've got I think they've got something like 8 million objects on display or something.
And 8 miles of galleries.
Yeah, incredible place, isn't it? Should we go back to the drawings then? So
we have got one more question that's quite on topic. It's do you think the word surreal is overused these days?
Yeah, absolutely.
He hears it in conversation all the time.
It is, yeah. It's become devalued now.
Can't use to say anything strange, really, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is surreal. No, it's not surreal. It's just normal.
Yeah.
Keep things normal.
You could be so you could set up the surrealist police, actually, couldn't you?
Yeah.
People being arrested for misuse of the word surreal. So should we go to image 4? You've done a couple. There's a couple here that are very recent, actually.
Yeah.
Social distancing. So that's image 4. Tell us about that one.
But that was when this phenomenon of social distancing started to enter the language because of the lockdown and the quarantine. So I was kind of curious at the fact that some people have been social distancing for years because they're just not very popular, and I thought that would be. How could I portray this? And I did a drawing for the New Yorker magazine, and it was my opportunity to try and to get the picture of these rather strange water towers which they have in New York, and which are always high up on a building. So that gave me the distancing part. So the two figures could be actually a very long way away. And the idea of somebody avoiding somebody is the classic kind of Yorkshire thing, where people would cross over the street to avoid somebody. So they've been doing social distancing in Yorkshire for years, But this is a celebration of Yorkshire traits.
Yorkshire and artistic traits.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
artists have self-isolated for social distanced for years, haven't they? And we're running out of time, actually, Glenn. It's so brilliant talking to you. Let's have a look at your last one, which just takes us back to Uncle Frank again.
Yeah.
So this is image 5.
Right. Yeah, I wanted to try and show the absurdity of this situation where people were being told to do one thing and no one quite knows what to do now, which rules to follow. So I thought, well, Uncle Frank, ever that beacon of sanity, is going to take it to the ultimate extreme and go to a different planet and pitch his tent there, But just to let you know, it's Uncle Frank. He's painted a big F on the
I
canvas.
love the F on his. I'm hoping the F on his tent could be seen from some other planets, or the satellites, seen by satellite, so people know he's there. Because I'd be sad to lose Uncle Frank altogether, wouldn't it?
I think he might come back. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wonderful drawing. I mean, it's a wonderfully simple drawing, actually. I mean, I'm sure the simplicity of your drawings, it takes a great deal of time to achieve, I should imagine, but as simplicity often does.
Yeah.
But it's a wonderful, lovely drawing. I like really like the texture of the sky. Clem, have we got any last questions?
No, that's it for questions now.
Lovely.
Hooray!
Very well done. Perfect timing, you see. They've stopped questioning you now. They know that half an hour's up.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Glenn. That was really, really lovely. It was great to talk to you and lovely to look at your work. And thank you very much for sharing some anecdotes from your illustrious career. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Take care. Thank you. And I'll say goodbye as well. Thanks for watching. Lovely to be with you again. And I'm going to hand you back to Clem. I didn't get muddled up with the Clems and the Glens of this world.
Yeah, did well.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Glenn and Al. Thank you to all our listeners and watchers as well, and for the questions as well. Just to let you know, in the video description on the YouTube channel, there's lots of great resources if you want to learn more about Glenn and his work. There's lots of things on there you can find out more with. And also there's a feedback form on there if you want to fill that in. We'd love to have them back. Help us make Bravo 22 Live bigger and better. And also just to remind viewers that we have lots of things on next week. We'll be back on Tuesday with our series of In Conversation With. The guest will be announced on Friday. And next Wednesday, we're running a script writing workshop, and that's led by Anushka Arden. There are limited places on that, though, so if you are interested, please email Alice Palmer at thedriveproject.co.uk to make sure there's a space for you on there. And next Thursday, Al will be with us again for the first in our Masterpieces series. That's on our YouTube channel here as well. So thank you again for joining us, and hope you have a lovely weekend. Thank you.